everybody, and welcome to a little director's cut that we're filming here because we just finished post-production. We are going to do a GM's post-campaign talk and just kind of talk about some technical aspects and some story aspects of this season, what made this season special, and just talk about the season as a whole and how Aaron and I did everything. So, yeah, we originally came up with the idea because we were... all of the cavemen, all of the Journey from Cave group were talking about just random stuff, and I was watching the Truman Show at the time, and I said, how crazy would it be for your caveman characters if they found out that they were being Truman Showed, and that they were just like, the whole time, they weren't actually cavemen, they lived in the real world, and they were just being lied to. And Aaron went, wait a minute, can I DM you?
I'm gonna be perfectly honest, I was so nervous about that the whole first season, and it just kind of stuck in my mind, so it was sort of like this would be torture. Let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, when Aaron and I started talking about it, I think we were, originally oh yeah, that's something we could do one day. And then I went, what if we did it in September? And
now,
it was August. So...
that was truly bonkers as far as the timeline goes, and then how quickly the idea evolved. Because originally we were like, oh yeah, they'll spend 3 episodes in the dome and 3 episodes out of the dome, and then the cast was immediately dissatisfied with the dome, and we're like, okay, they're out tomorrow.
Yeah, no, end of session 2, somebody's gotta die.
Yeah.
And so as far as, choosing our cast, I mean... we chose the cavemen again. But then Josie got kicked to the curb because... I'm just kidding. But Josie wasn't able to join us because of scheduling issues. And so we were kind of interested in having not just 4 PCs. And so I asked Aaron, do you trust me to bring in a 5th person? And I asked my real-life friend Abby, who's also in Terrador's Trespass. And, I mean, I think she blended in with the cavemen group beautifully.
She's amazing. I have to say that whole group just has the most bonkers energy consistently, and I don't understand how they constantly mesh so well. It's just insane to me.
And all of us met for the first time when we were filming Journey from Cave.
Caveman.
I mean, I had met everybody except Skullie before, but not...
as a group together.
Right. So...
yeah. No, it was truly insane how that came together both times. That, even a full new group on Cavemen, and then one, swapped out member of that group with Truman's. I don't understand how it meshed that well, only having a group chat in existence for, a week beforehand.
Well, yeah, and, Josie... I think she would have been fine if she had joined this, but she would not have played Audrey. And I think that Audrey was such an integral part of our campaign, of our player dynamics too. And Josie would not have played that type of character, which is interesting.
I would love to have added her, but I would not have taken any of our current characters out for anything.
Right, exactly.
I think
she would have played...
it's always...
Go ahead.
She would have played someone amazing, and then had a mental break during the season. I think her character would have been one that screaming at the showrunners.
Yeah, I think I was thinking more in an Arthur way of just being so mentally broken.
Oh, she could do such a good Arthur.
She would play a good...
would be amazing.
I don't think she's ever played a man, but if she played the classic Truman character, she would do great with that.
Yeah. It would have been amazing. So, I don't know, thinking about it, whenever we were making this world, I was always really attached to the concept of this new dome and how we were, putting it together to poke at our cast. And I was wondering what you felt most attached to from this world.
Oh, I felt a really special connection to Arthur, the character. And that, Arthur really felt like a DMPC, which most of the time I avoid, and I don't try to do that, because I think, it's hard to balance having a DMPC and, being the DM and having a world. But,
Very fair.
Arthur being this kind of tie between the cast and the world, where he's not a part of the party, but he's maybe the only person that's not in the party that they can really fully trust. I was super attached to him as a concept. I loved, I think Aaron was the one that came up with the idea to have the original canceled show and have him enter the second dome. Or, as we found out, had always been in the second dome. And I think I loved that idea that, like, the Truman Show, as in the Jim Carrey movie, also happened here. Like, that basic concept happened first, and then it built off of that from there. But I loved that idea.
And what a bonkers world to have loved it. To have people see him leave the show and somehow get funding for 5 more.
Right, like that. It seemed like that one was kind of a flop because it had no plot, really. Like, he didn't have that many crazy issues going on. He was just kind of a normal guy.
Yeah, and, like, people were cheering for him in the end, and I can't imagine... Like, there had to be human rights meetings about this in the Truman Show universe. And the fact that, like, we just have a small rebel group that's like, this is kind of messed up, guys.
Hey, guys, you shouldn't do that. Yeah, I wish
you can't do that, guys.
If there was anything that, like, we could have explored more, I think I wish that we had had more time to explore the Friends of the Five, because that was brought up by a character. Yes. I think Rognar made that up, and just being able to explore that more, because, like, that was a big part of the Truman Show. The original movie was that people were trying to get Truman out. Yeah. What would be yours that you're most attached to from the world?
I would definitely say just the concept of the second dome, or, the second set as a whole.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was just, I don't know, really interesting that somehow this mega corporation cut out and preserved a slice of suburbia.
Yeah.
And how we implied that they did that with 10 places, and then just straight up said to Arthur, here are 10 places where people are less likely to go to, you can pick one. Been planning this from the start. And I think it was implied that they didn't have recording in the dome for 25 years, that they were slowly through, like, projects like, oh, there's new developments, installing these pinhole mics and cameras all across a fake suburbia.
Right. Well, just in general, the idea that, like, we saw those sets, and they were Hollywood sets, like, with some kind of cybernetic force field around it so that you can't leave. Harleyville was a town. I mean, in those 30 years, he could have left at any time. And for some reason, Arthur just didn't. And, like, the fact that, I mean, like you're saying, basically, like, how can you take a real city and just hook it up with all of that tech to where there's adequate camera angles to where they felt like, oh yeah, no matter where they go in this city, we'll be able to see them. And that's the same issue with the classic Truman Show. Like, they filled that entire set with enough cameras that, like, were hidden from Truman, but they could always see him and wherever he went.
Absolutely a bonkers concept, and I love that we went with it.
And this is my second time co-GMing. I'm not sure if you've co-GM'd before.
Never.
Cool. I love co-GMing, and I've talked about this before. I think this one will probably be out before the Territor's Trespass one, so oops, spoilers. But
oh no, you spoiled.
Oh no,
spoiled it. You GM'd a show that's already out with someone else.
I spoiled my own show. That it's already out. But we talked about, like, the way that I split up that show with Jesse is worlds different than how we split up this one. Because Jesse and I share a PC and we just swap who's DMing. We had this, I think we made it up, this split up between, like, the world and the characters, essentially, right? Like, one person is adjudicating dice rolls and helping the players do what they want to do. And the other person is the world making things happen to them.
Yeah. And I was definitely, the way we broke it up, we had originally intended it being one of us is tension, one of us is release. And I think that fairly quickly, you know, was still our goal, but kind of fell by the wayside with the alternating sessions.
Right.
And I think that's kind of where that guardian angel idea came in, where one showrunner is on call.
And then they never used us. They never used us.
Never once. Never once. No, I love it. I think the one time I had ever seen, like, code GMing is when it split up that this one person purely runs combat and this one person runs everything else. And I could never do that.
I don't want to do that. I love
both too much. And I think this way we both got a fair split of what we were doing.
Yeah, and I mean, we chose... I think if we ran it again and we were really dedicated to doing the release versus tension, then we would have... I'm always DMing, and I'm always running what the characters are trying to do and trying to help them.
Just throwing wrenches in.
And you're always throwing wrenches in. But I didn't dislike switching. I mean, you know, like, I didn't dislike switching who was in the driver's seat and who was in the passenger seat. Necessarily, but we came up with this idea for the release intention, and then we were like, well, it's a show, so we have a rare opportunity here where, like, the DM can be a character, where, like, usually the DM's, you know, this omnipresent, like, just kind of thing that is the liaison between the world and the players, but we had an opportunity where, like, there's literally human people that are making things and story happen to real people. So we got to make Raegan Lease and Trenten and Shinn and come up with the stupid names to so that they could shorten to Raegan and or to
remember,
release.
It was so late at night, and we were going for, like, I think 10 or 20 minutes trying to come up with these names, just texting back and forth.
Yeah, just trying to figure out, like...
We were so proud in the moment.
Like, last names or whatever, because, you know, Shinn and
it's
and Lease...
2100.
Like, yeah, whatever for the last name. But it's hard to find a realistic-sounding first name that would be... And so we were like, Release... Raegan?
Oh.
And then we were like, oh my god. It was like 1 a.m. Oh my god, that's so smart. Yeah. But we got, like, a cool... opportunity to create characters that are the DM is a character that is taking turns running their lives, which is cool.
And I think, you know, that aspect really almost helped the division of labor with this, as far as, like, what players saw, because, you know, by the end, I think it was very clear that the players didn't like either of the showrunners, but they were actively killing one of us.
Right. One of us was just kind of like, man, if she was trying to help us, she got it way wrong. Versus, like, this dude is, like, a Shakespearean villain. Who's not even Shakespearean. You're uploading your consciousness to try to continue telling stories forever. Pfft, weirdo.
Well... I mean, hey, we all have our hobbies.
And, yeah, I mean, you know, like, a clear morality was established. I think I intended on Raegan maybe being more
good,
explicitly helpful and good, and it just didn't, you know, when you work for Lock Studios, I don't know that you can be fully just explicitly good.
No, and that brings up the terrifying boardroom. And I'm just like, oh, we should have a boardroom. And you're like, we're putting them in solid gold animal masks.
Like in Squid Games. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I've never seen Squid Games. I trust you. And it worked so well.
They were horrified, yeah. And to just have them be like, for Ray and 10 to be here on the evil scale, the board's up there.
Incredible.
Yeah, and they were fun guys to play, because it was just like, what's the worst thing I could say right now that lacks all human empathy and emotion?
And I think that really helped you, because Raegan maybe had, like, 70% empathy, where Trenton's sitting at a solid, like, 6, maybe.
Yeah.
And you just got to go, because you wrote the boardroom scenes for the most part. and I could tell you just, like, turned off all empathy for these scenes. And it's like, oh, if she were a CEO, I don't think her company could fail.
I think I wrote all of the Raegan and Ten scenes, or at least I conceptualized most of them.
I think for a lot of them, yes. I think what it was...
But you wrote all of the opening episodes, pretty much.
I added for those. Pardon?
Yeah. You wrote all of the opening episodes, pretty much, and, like, whether or not I transcribed them and fleshed them out, like, you came up with all of the opening ideas. I did Rognar's. No, you did Rognar.
Rognar's, you wrote out. I came up with a lot of the concepts, but I only had the concepts. I couldn't string them together. You were adding in, like, the velociraptor races, which is... I just love that, like... In the canon of the show, not only did they make robot horses, they made robot velociraptors.
I had a pretty big budget for that show. Or you had a pretty big budget for that show. Not canonically. Canonically, you did not, but yeah. That's where all the budget went.
I spent all my budget on the dinosaurs. You guys don't know this. Trenten loves dinosaurs.
Yeah, exactly. But, I mean, well, I think for Ragnar's, you know... You came up with most of the concept of it, and the concept of, like, starting each episode with an episode of a show, all Aaron. And then you did Margo's by yourself. You did all of Margo's.
Listen,
I
had to cook on that.
You cooked, and then I did Della's, but you
did Della's.
You played everything that happened in Della's. You were Eddie. And then Audrey was all you. All you, baby, because I didn't know what the fuck was going on. And then Matthias, God bless you. Because of our tech issues, you took over Matthias's, even though, like, I wrote it, you did it.
You wrote it very well, I will say. It was very well written. The universe just conspired against us.
Always. And it's because I'm a woman. So.
Exactly.
Yeah. But, I mean, for the end Raegan and Ten scenes, you know... We planned that first one together, where they were just like, man, that's crazy. Don't you kind of feel bad for him? And Trenten was like, no.
Yeah. No, it's great, actually. You're wrong.
And then the second one where she was like, what did you do? I guess the council will know. I think you came up with the mystery of, like, will Raegan defend him? Will she not?
Yeah.
And then I came up with the council idea, I think. Maybe.
I think that's correct. Because I would never have thought of the council.
And then we met the council. We did the, like, talks. And then 4, you hit me. Or no, I hit you, and then you stabbed me. That was your idea. Because you were like, what if I just kill her? And I was like, okay! And then 5, we didn't have a scene with Raegan and 10, because it was just the council being like, no, let's watch them, let's see what happens.
6, we couldn't.
6, dead. R.I.P. Rip. Yeah.
Still got a council scene out of it.
Still got yeah. Wow.
I think we've kind of sort of eased into it, and I know this is one of your questions, but with the character arcs, you know, we did Ray and 10 originally. Our plan was that 10 would get fired, go off the rails, and that's how it was revealed that they were a show, because he was meddling.
Yeah. And
then they figured it out. I don't remember what happened that figured it out for them. That, like,
they
was
were
the final
just
piece.
It was genuinely after session 1 in our group chat, not on camera. They were like, I have a feeling that Lock Studios just put us all into a room to do a happy sitcom, and we went, we're not going to be able to tease them out for 2 more sessions.
That's right. That's right. Our
and so we were like, let's just fast track it and reveal it at the end of 2.
Yes. And then after the original plan was to have Raegan become much more corporate as she was having to take on Trenten's duties. And I think it's, very interesting to have then switched that to, oh no, they're both themselves. They're just going to the absolute extremes of, Raegan is trying to help everyone, including Trenten for some reason. Whereas Trenten is like, I'm going to tell the best story I physically can,
Right.
even if it kills me.
When I think, like, in terms of primary character drive, Trenten wants to tell good stories. He wants to be remembered as this great storyteller, this great bard. Raegan wants to be worshipped a little bit. She likes to be in control. She really likes the kind of cushy, life that she has as a showrunner. She likes that, like, there's some tension between Raegan and Ten because I had the higher budget because I was doing Matthias and Audrey's shows. He had the lower 3 at first with a much lower budget, and then when Della ran away, she wasn't supposed to run away. It was supposed to be an American Bridgerton where she was like, living in high society in the city in the 1850s, and she ran away and started to do the cowboy thing, and because the story arc so dramatically, Trenten had to run that Della's show with me.
I really, I wonder what the in-universe explanation would be for that. Because those sets you could walk across and it would maybe take 12 hours if you're just walking across each set.
Maybe.
And so the fact that she somehow ran away from home, I feel like we had to be like, all right, there's loose ground at the end. She's going to fall and knock herself out.
And then wake up in the new spot.
Cowboy will pick her up and put her in a new set.
Right, exactly. And so, is that what you'd call Raegan's main drive? It seems like it's just, control and, wanting to maintain her cushy spot as a show director.
Yeah, I think she wants to keep her job, definitely. And I think there's a bit of, I don't know, I want you to know what I did for you type things.
It's definitely a control thing with Trenten, for sure. Hey, we both are control freaks. We literally control people's lives for our job. But, it's definitely a control thing with Trenten where, do I really... I'm mad at him so much for going off the rails and not doing what I told him to. But I think I have an opportunity here to blackmail him and to kind of make him be my little servant boy if I let him keep his job. And I think Ten knows, because we've known each other for a very long time, that a little bit of begging goes a long way. Just a little flattery of ego, of you're so amazing and great. Please, this would literally save my life. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, she wants to maintain...
Owe me forever? Yeah, I'll do it.
Right. It's just a control thing with Trenten for sure. And, for the show itself, it was... At first, I just want to keep things going how they're going. I want to be successful. I want to keep the job. I don't want it to fail like Arthur's did. But also, this weird in-between where she is talking like she wants to help them, kind of. But I think it's just a difference of, Trenten is, story over everything. I don't really care if these people suffer. I think Raegan felt slightly more maternal towards the cast, where she was just I want them to have interesting but good stories. And I think that reflects in our shows, though, too, because Rognar was hated in his town. Margo never got anything she wanted, never got to do anything, and she was always acted upon. And Della never got to do anything. But then, Audrey and Matthias' lives were kind of great.
No, they were definitely, the better of the two. And I think something we talked about was, possibly having, occasionally ghost written on each other's shows.
Mm.
And so I fully imagine, 90% of the time, Audrey and Matthias are yeah, I'm solving mysteries and doing space captain things. This is great. And meanwhile, it's okay, they've been happy for too long. I hate to do this. Trenten, come in here, fuck it up. And then versus, Rognar, Margo, and Della, it's these ratings are dropping. They need to be happy so people have hope for them. Please help. Have
Ola go... act like she will ask Rognar out for a day or two and then bring him back out. Yeah.
I feel like Ragnar's story, as far as in the show, in his dome, in my mind, I'm immediately this is one of those awkward. This is like Saved by the Bell, almost. This is not a normal caveman show. It's more like a, sitcom teen drama, like, it's like, Degrassi or something.
Degrassi's way too dramatic. I was imagining more like The Office level of stakes for Rognar, or just like, it's just like, everyone here is kind of scared of me, and I'm just really trying to get the girl. Like, and that was kind of his whole...
Hold on. Ned's declassified. That's what it is. He's just trying to fit in. There we go.
That's better than Degrassi, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, like, Margo's was definitely like medieval Bridgerton. Bridgerton's wrong era, but like, House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones, that kind of thing. Della, we're definitely looking at any old Western.
Very stereotypical.
Any old Western. Audrey, I'm like a Sherlock Holmes. Enola Holmes.
More like Murder, She Wrote type deal.
Murder, She Wrote, yeah. And then Matthias, Star Trek. It's a direct Star Trek ripoff.
Fully Star Trek. What's the other one? The one...
Star Wars.
No. The one, the Orville or whatever.
I don't know.
I don't know. The ship in the one is called the Orville. I don't know what the actual show is called. It's very similar, but a lot, like, less consistently hopeful than Star Trek, from what I've seen of it. It's also more of a comedy, so that shifts things in a weird way, but...
Right. Well, before we, like, look explicitly at everybody's character arcs, like, in post-production, the campaign, did you have another question before we talk about player autonomy?
Yes. One of the weird ones I had been, like, mulling about, and I'm like, man, if I rewind my life, drop me in a show, what would I now hope kid me get put in? And what I wrote down here was Columbo, because Columbo seems fun. But then I've immediately gone, like, hold on, wait, Doogie Howser, or, like, Sweet Life with Zack and Cody. Those would just be... terrifying shows to be on, but I think the least hellish?
Yeah, not super, like, not, I'm a Starfleet captain and I've never been to the stars. Ooh. What would I hope Child Joe was put on? This is a book. The only thing I'm thinking about are books.
You can adapt a book.
Yeah, like a Junie B. Jones or Nancy Drew or not Matilda. Matilda was miserable.
Matilda was miserable.
But like,
end of Matilda.
Yeah, any of those shows or books or whatever where it's just like ratty little girl child rains terror on everyone around her. Yeah, rains terror on everyone in her life. Ramona and Beezus. Yeah.
Yes. I love it.
Raining terror on the people around me.
I just absolutely horrifying. The thought of you existing in a world where it is your job to rain terror and not just how you operate. Well,
that's what I was like as a kid. So. Yeah, that's what I was like as a kid, so that works out. But in the world of hold on, segue, I can do it.
Yeah, hit me.
They if we were in shows, we wouldn't have any autonomy. So consider this. Technically speaking, player autonomy is such a big, like, the debate in D&D or any TTRPG talking about, we also should talk about why we chose Roll for Shoes, but the debate between sandbox gameplay versus railroading and where you should fall on that line is such, like, a hot topic, and you want to try to, like, keep the story moving, but also make sure that your players don't feel like they're, like, sitting in a car and watching the story happen. But this was a different thing because we really railroaded them when needed, because it was just the characters were literally Raegan and Tin were literally railroading them.
And I think that was like 90% of why we needed Arthur. I think, because I know players, I am a player, we just slow down so much, and so we need to have someone making you promise to kill them to cause things to happen.
Right. Like, wait, I'm going with or without you. Let's, like, come on. Right? And our players aren't idiots. Like, they took all of our hints. Every time that we were like, so strange, a BlackBerry is hey gang, your phone's ringing. They know that we're trying to do a plot thing, but they're being honest to their characters, so we have to railroad them.
I do deeply love them breaking the phone so many times and smashing the TV, because it really meant, it changed it from, hey, this is a plot thing that's happening, to, hey, we're tormenting you.
I mean, and why would they answer the phone? Absolutely, why would they? But we were like, oh, we're trying to do a cool plot thing. So, but that's the thing of, like, in a regular game, if you keep having the phone ring, then your players are just like, okay, this is unrealistic, you're railroading us. But in this game, it's like, no, Raegan and Tin want you to answer that phone, they're railroading you. They are torturing you.
Oh, for sure. And I think, like, as far as I go in terms of, like, the baseline of this debate, my general go-to is, okay, here's a beach. I've put a trolley problem on this beach, and you need to make these decisions, or the trolley's going to keep going and kill 100,000 people.
Yeah.
You can make it kill half of that people, if you want, or you can play in the sand. And this one was very much like,
but
here's a little world.
If you play in the sand,
decisions.
Right, but if you play in the sand, you're going to face the consequences of killing 100,000 people.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of times sandbox games can turn into, like, well, there's 4 toys sitting in 4 corners of the sandbox. There's no repercussions for whichever one you choose. You know.
It's like, no. If you don't pick, if you pick one toy and you leave the other 3 to sit, now 2 of these toys are at war, and the 3rd toy summoned a demon.
Yeah, exactly.
Now you've got to deal with that. Versus this, it was like, you have one toy, play nice with it, please.
And also, like, I think that our players knew what they were getting into when we said that this is a Truman Show campaign, and it's futuristic cyberpunk, good God, no. It's futuristic dystopian, like, when you turn 13, you must enter the Hunger Games. Like, it's a genre that is inherently devoid of choice, and that's the horror aspect of it, is that we live in a world of choice, what if we didn't, right? And so I think that they knew that coming into it, and they don't feel annoyed like they would if it was a regular campaign and we were doing this.
Yeah. I also think that they did very well to give us the little, like, motes of motivation that they would always latch onto, and then we took those motes of motivation and wrapped them all in together as, like, you hate this one guy. And of course they're all gonna go after the one guy who took all their motivation away. There's no world in which they didn't. Otherwise, it would just be 5 Arthurs.
Right. Wow. Yeah. So true. Arthur, R.I.P. He was a good man. He was such a doormat.
I loved when he finally made a decision, and even then, we had him make that decision the whole time, so...
I mean, yeah, his decision to finally be like, yeah, I'm ready to die. It was even just pathetic. It's
I'd
like...
stolen a car. That was
one of the
most impactful decisions he made.
And that's, like, just the only cool thing he's ever done in his whole life.
And then he died same day.
Yeah. Wink. Because our players don't value Arthur's life.
They've watched episode 3, I don't know what you're doing.
I'm going to put it in an opening card on all of these talkback sessions. It's like spoilers, obviously. Duh. Yeah. It's a talkback session.
Don't be silly.
Yeah. But yeah, what did you have? I believe you did have another question, did you not, before we did the character arc?
Yes. My final question was, like, what decision did our cast make that surprised you the most? Because this was very Rails adjacent, and so a lot of the decisions were A, B, or C, but I feel like sometimes they pulled a Z out of nowhere.
Right. I think there was a few times that, like, they missed our point a bit and they tried to do something completely different. And this the nature of the show, though. We don't ride with those choices. We go, no. And so the ones that come to mind are when they were trying to, like, they didn't immediately try to kill Trenten. They were talking about, like, I'm going to beat him up a little bit and then I'm going to leave him alone. And then you know, Matthias is like, Audrey, kill him. And then they kind of went back and forth a little bit before, you know, Captain, what do I do? And then deciding to not kill him, which was what we wanted them to do. We wanted them to beat him up horribly and try to kill him and then pull him out. But
oh, for sure.
They kind of split up, and rather than, they all beat you up a little bit. And then they split up where, like, Audrey goes to Arthur to help get him up. Matthias is trying to tell people what to do. Della and Margo, I think, were trying to get out of the box. They were trying to break the glass. And
I think so.
I'd say that's maybe one where I was just like, kill him.
You're not all in on killing me? What?
And then this was not one that we needed to railroad because it was just a whatever decision. I think I was surprised that they didn't want to explore Arthur's dome. And they didn't touch it, which I think is, like, a beautiful choice. And
oh, for sure.
To the ideology of just, like, he hated having his whole life watched. That was what literally drove him to want to die over and over and over again. Let's just let it rot. But I definitely expected them to want to go in. I definitely expected them to want to go in and learn more about their fallen friend.
Yeah.
See pictures of him and his wife.
Beautiful.
You know.
In a similar vein, you know, I had been surprised by Audrey not going into her dome. Now, I didn't expect anyone, you know, for certain to go into their domes, but Audrey having the full, like, if I go in there, I will start thinking about it and it will make it real again.
Mm.
The ones I had written down were robbing the liquor store and forming a polyamorous couple.
Oh my god, yeah.
Way...
But those were just, like, the liquor store was literally, you said, should we do a scene where we go buy liquor? And they said, we don't have any money, but we could rob a liquor store. That didn't necessarily, like, that wasn't necessarily a choice that surprised me, but it was haha funny enough that I was like, this is classic TTRPG shenanigans, but
I think just how they went through with robbing the liquor store is what was the most stunning to me. Fully the, like, 5 buttons undone, you know, while we go fucking, you know, distract you, and then just taking the whole cash register.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
It was really, it really made sense for 5 people that have never been in the real world, that don't have any real money, to do that. I mean, that made sense. I think the polyamorous relationship was so beautiful and so gradual to me that I wasn't like because there wasn't a moment where they decided necessarily. I think we had some, like, tension between Audrey and Matthias, and we had some tension between Audrey and Della. I don't think we had much tension between Della and Matthias until they all kissed outside of Lock Studios. But, like, that choice of, like, Matthias kisses Della and Audrey was because somebody was having tech issues. Me. Not somebody. Me. And they were waiting for me to come back. And Matthias said, or Nolan said that, and Abby went, wait, really? And he went, yeah, sure, why not? And so then it just, they kind of went with it. But from an in-game perspective, it makes perfect sense, because how could you ever possibly be with anyone else outside of the 5 of you? And, I mean, humans naturally crave connection and romantic, platonic intimacy. Like, you know, that's natural, and all of them had some kind of, none of them are aro ace, right? Because in their shows, they all either had lovers or wanted to have lovers. And for somebody who's not aro ace, you are naturally desiring romantic or sexual intimacy and love and connection with other people, somebody that you trust, and they can't possibly trust anyone outside of the 5 of them. And when they're already for sure planning on the 5 of them living as hermits out in the middle of the woods, just with the 5 of them that they know they can trust, like, I think that if it hadn't happened before they settled down in the church, it would have happened eventually.
Yeah. And I will say I am very pleased with the players in that Trenten, saw, they're doubting everything right now except each other. Let's try and make them doubt each other. And not once did they give in to that.
No. I mean, and
even when we had Arthur in on it, going like, which one of you's fake? Who's the faker?
Well, let me be clear.
Who's sus?
Aaron and Joe had Arthur in on it. Arthur, the character in the game, just thought that was happening. Locke Studios did not have Arthur in on it.
What Trenten was selling there.
Right. And even then, they were all just like, they had no doubt. They had unwavering doubt in each other. Or, no, unwavering faith in each other.
Unwavering doubt. What's going on?
But I just think that was a really beautiful storyline. And, like, Margo and Rognar had been interested in each other from the very beginning. From the very beginning. Sure. And I think that was a byproduct of both of them realizing that their crush or potential lover were fake, and so they just kind of like they came in right after each other into the green room, and Ragnar's the most beautiful woman he's ever seen in his life, and it was just kind of a like, hey, we're both hurting, we're both lacking this particular wound that's been left behind. We're both lacking that feeling of love that we had previously.
Let's be rebounds for each other in the only healthy way it's ever happened.
Let's be rebounds, and it was really beautiful and healthy. But
somehow.
But then that leaves a 3, right? And there was talk near the beginning of, like, because Matthias was flirting heavily with Audrey from the very beginning, because it was just the first woman that he saw. But, and then we were all like, I think in the group chat, even people had been talking about, like, man, Dell's gonna be alone if Audrey and Matthias get together. But then they had that scene on the porch of the motel, Audrey and Della did, where we got some vibes between the two of them. And then I think the idea just kind of naturally came about of, like, Matthias would be down for anything. And clearly the ladies have, love each other very much. All of them love each other very much.
Kind of jumping off of that, redirecting to this final character arcs question, I really was pleased with what Margo's arc was, where, she was denied autonomy the whole entire time. It was fully like, you are the daughter of a noble, you must stay in the keep, we'll let you train at archery, because that's going to be interesting for the show, but you have these 2 love interests. She brought in Eric. Eric was fully not meant to be a love interest, so she made it a square, I guess. And so it was like, that was one of her major exertions of her own autonomy in the show, and then Eric in the diner, she's fully like, oh, I'm not going in there, I'm not taking this bait. And being with Rognar was another full decision of hers.
Right.
And, like, dyeing her hair. She fully, went off and did her own thing. And I think, in a lot of the scenes near the end, I had Trenten be dismissive of her. And I think in my mind that's because of his shows, hers went the closest to how he plotted it most of the time.
Right.
Because he didn't really plot it around her or her actions. He just put a whole bunch of moving pieces in the background that were going to move and maybe get shifted by her.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I do, to a degree, feel like a piece of shit because Trenten was so dismissive of Margo, so sometimes it feels like I was dismissive of her, but it was such a good job. Hale did so well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Hale's the master of very subtle character development. And,
yes.
Characters that sneak their way through the background and then punch when you're least expecting it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So talk to me about, like, how do you see that Rognar's character development went from session 1 to the finale?
I think it was a self-confidence thing, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. At first, I thought, his whole thing is going to be rejecting his show and the, role that was placed on him. In the end, sure, he did that. He still tore a robot apart. He did it for love, mind you, but he's still the strongest man. But these prehistoric man, they are modern problems he was facing. And making him not prehistoric doesn't make the problems not modern. He just actually did things for himself. He had choice. Because no matter what he did in the show, the other characters weren't reacting truly. So it's not like, oh, am I frozen?
No. No, you're fine.
Oh, you're frozen on my end. Am I frozen? When did I cut out?
You didn't cut out.
Not at all? Mm-mm. Oh, I'm just anxious. Okay. Where was I? Oh, so I feel like he was making decisions. None of them ever worked out. He was never going to be confident in himself because he kept getting slapped in the face. And so seeing him being willing, very much in a way that almost parallels Margo, they both were making real decisions there at the end with real autonomy. And I think of all of them, those were the two who had the most autonomy to gain.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Skullie plays that beautifully. Shout out to Skullie for playing a caveman twice in a row.
Absolutely.
On Whispers of the Dice.
Truly astounding.
That's Skullie's typecast. Just kidding. But
because I remember we were like, okay, it's got to be Skullie or Nolan. And those are the two we approached first about it to try and figure out, like, all right, which one of you's playing the caveman?
We wanted two extremes.
The rest of this.
We wanted two extremes, and we thought that Skullie and Nolan would play our extremes very well. And I kind of envisioned that Nolan would argue for the space trek captain, because I could imagine him having that pomp and circumstance from the beginning. But
oh, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and then what about Della for you?
I think Della's was mostly about. I hate to say it, literally all of theirs were about autonomy to some degree, but Della's was just like.
I think hers was a proactivity thing because she, much like Rognar and Margo, didn't do much. I mean, her show was about her aspiring to be a cowgirl. She never became one.
Yeah, and I think it was very much so like Margo, I think, had self-worth in the bag the whole time. I think she knew what she was worth constantly. Mm. Rognar and Della were both very much like, the world is conspiring against me. Mm. But now, we see Della making decisions. Sure, she's using the skills she learned in the show. She still seduced this 21-and-a-half-year-old liquor store employee and, popped a cork off a fireball.
If I'm going to Foley this, I'm going to pop a cork. Yeah,
listen, I mean, I respect it. It's a good decision.
Della's was definitely, I don't know. It's gone. There it goes. There it goes.
I think, I don't know. I think for hers, it was about actually taking the decision no matter what.
Making a plan and not letting anyone stop her from fulfilling what her plan is.
I think in the show she was definitely, like, told no and then just sat with that no for a bit longer than she should have.
Yeah.
Versus getting out of the dome, oh, you're telling me no? I'm gonna know your no, what now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that Audrey and Matthias, conversely, are a very different story.
Yeah.
Because they all obviously are missing autonomy in the way that it was fed to them. But Audrey and Matthias did make decisions. I mean, they maybe were guided into certain things by the showrunners, but, you know, Audrey had to choose to become a detective. She had to make all these choices and be very proactive to solve all these mysteries and be super successful. Matthias had to join the military. He had to make calls as a captain all the time. And both of them fell somewhat seamlessly into kind of a co-leadership of the group when they got, you know, out. But I think for Audrey, it was like letting go of both of them, a little bit of letting go of the pressure of being in charge slightly. Audrey kind of figuring out that like, it's my self-worth is not defined by how successful I am, for one. And two, like, I shouldn't always be looking for the next problem to solve. Sometimes I can just exist and things can happen. And in the same way...
that was definitely, like, exemplified with her stopping a robber in the fair. Like, some dude stole a purse, and she's like...
I got it. Yeah.
Mine. Dibs.
And in the same way, like, Matthias can realize that, like, you're not necessarily the captain of this ship, so to speak. And, especially with 3 people, at least, who don't really like to be told what to do anymore, knowing what their life is now, he had to kind of learn, once again, he is more than whatever worth he can give. And maybe all of his achievements as a captain were not true, but that doesn't mean that he's not brave and isn't still worthwhile in some way. And in the same way, he had to kind of relinquish control a little bit and learn how to work with other people rather than over other people.
Absolutely, yeah. I can definitely see that from both of them.
And then Arthur, Raegan, and Ten. Raegan and Ten got worse. R.I.P.
Yeah.
They just got worse.
We were evil and we just committed.
Just got eviler. Arthur,
I don't think he did much.
God bless him. He went from, like, kind of a happy, dandy man who was just, like, excited to help these people who got out of their domes and to help them adjust to what the real world is. And then they had barely met him when the world exploded and they realized that they were in a show again, and he just became a broken, deranged man from that point onward.
He was, like... My thought of Arthur was like, okay, weatherman to farmer is a massive jump.
Mm-hmm.
You've gone insane going from meteorology to farming.
Yeah.
Now that you know you're back in a show, the fact that you're acting like a grizzled war veteran is scaring me.
Yeah, because he
Why
wasn't...
do you have a 1,000-yard stare?
He wasn't
Why
a veteran.
Did you just steal a car?
Right. But, you know, he just had this, like... I think, you know, when he moved to Harleyville at first, though, we had that scene of him, you know, 5 somewhat normal years where he's just healing, but then he sees that there's 5 new shows made. He kind of became a doomsday prepper in that regard, where he was waiting for these shows to erupt, or waiting for the perfect opportunity to save the cast from their shows, and he was just... I think he kind of became that grizzled war vet a little bit in that way. And he was trying to seem super normal when he met them, but just, he's like, you have no idea how long I've been waiting to save you.
It's like, hi, I'm Chet Dandy and I'm fine. Just the full, like, wow, I'm cool, guys.
Yeah. Wow. Well, this has gone on longer than I intended on going on, but that's okay.
That's fine.
Any closing remarks or thoughts about this season? Do you think we would come back for a season 2, or do you think we'll finally let them rest?
Listen, I would love to see the council get destroyed. I can't imagine galvanizing these characters by doing anything than taking away their home, and I'm not willing to do that.
The only thing I think I'd be willing to do would be some kind of silly reunion one session thing down the line and just be like, okay, it's 10 years later, and just do a silly, like, what's the commune look like now session where we see how everything's going. But
I think the only way to, like, kill the board of directors or whatever is to fully be like, okay, now you're people who just got out of a new show, except it actually failed this time. Like, legit. And now you're just out in New Jersey.
They would never trust us to do that. No. We could do a spin-off one-shot where they play Friends of the Five.
Oh, that would be cool. That would be cool.
There you go.
Oh, I think we wanted to touch on this. I think you brought that up. The system. Using Roll for Shoes.
Oh, yeah. Really, Aaron came up with it. So I don't know. I don't know.
Listen, I just think it's the most easily adapted system because there's like 6 rules.
Yeah.
There's not combat. There's advantage and disadvantage, but I can never wrap my head around the disadvantage rules. So
weird.
I'll just run with it.
Weird. Yeah, it was really just like not 5e. No way.
No.
Because these are normal people. And we had just done Never Stop Blowing Up with Cavemen. So I think we were just looking for something new, and Aaron found Roll for Shoes. So
my solemn duty, putting a million new TTRPGs in front of you. I literally just got one where you're pigeons heisting.
I've read that one before.
Bird crimes. So good.
Yeah, so good. But yeah, I think that just about covers our talk back. Maybe we'll come back and do some kind of spin-off, one-shot, two-shot far down the line. But for now, look forward to Caveman Season 2. Territor's Trespass is ongoing, as always. And thank you very much for watching. We hope you enjoyed both post-production and this. Bye.